Malaysia's digital journey began more than 2 decades ago when MSC Malaysia was set up to transform the country into a knowledge-based economy. Since then, MSC Malaysia has contributed immensely towards the growth of the nation's digital economy. Our next step is to take the digital transformation from the corridor to the world. Introducing Malaysia Digital, a strategic initiative which will empower the rakyat, businesses and foreign investments. Malaysia Digital will also elevate the participation of Malaysians and local businesses in revolutionizing the world's digital economy. Malaysia Digital opens doors for Malaysians by providing equitable access to digital tools, knowledge and income opportunities. It offers new business opportunities and growth through a supportive digital ecosystem. It also provides flexible and agile investment facilitation to make the country investment friendly. The goal is to drive the digital ecosystem and develop the digital economy to a stage where it contributes at least 25.5% of our GDP and creates 500,000 jobs by 2025.
Malaysia Digital will galvanize public-private partnerships to accelerate the growth of our digital economy and drive positive transformation that ultimately benefit the rakyat, businesses, investors, and also the whole nation.
Establishing Malaysia into a digital nation, one with more adept, stronger and resilient economy, society and governance. Stepping into tomorrow's digital future today.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam perpaduan, salam Malaysia Madani. I'm pleased to share a groundbreaking initiative that is shaping the future of our nation, the National Data Sharing Policy or NDSP. In 2022, the government launched the NDSP, a visionary policy that transcends boundaries, encompassing the public sector, the private sector and the rakyat. This policy holds the key to fostering a data sharing environment that is not only conducive but transformative. It aims to unleash the true potential of data, improve the quality and transparency of service delivery, stimulate innovation, and drive economic growth through data-driven solutions. The formulation of NDSP envisions a nation where data knows no bounds, where its accessibility and usability are at the core of our digital landscape. By actively engaging in this endeavor, we are laying a strong foundation for the next evolution of our digital ecosystem. We're embarking on a journey to build a stronger and more secure digital foundation for Malaysia. It is the keystone of our digital transformation agenda, empowering us to become a more inclusive, resilient, sustainable, and forward-thinking nation. Embracing responsible and ethical data sharing will unlock significant value for our society and economy, enhancing our competitiveness on the global stage. I encourage all of you to support this policy and explore the vast opportunities that data sharing presents. To raise awareness and gather valuable feedback, we have initiated the NDSP series, a collaborative effort by the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation or MDEC, Malaysia Kini, and Digital News Asia or DNA, with the support of the Ministry of Communications and Digital. This series aims to educate the public about the benefits and challenges of data sharing, while gathering opinions and suggestions to enhance the policy and its implementation. Your active participation in these discussions will be instrumental in shaping the data sharing practices in Malaysia, leading us towards a secure and dynamic digital world. and let us embark on this remarkable journey together.
Hi everyone, a very good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the 8th episode of the National Data Sharing Policy series. So this series is actually jointly organized by Malaysian Digital Economic Corporation, Malaysia Kini, Digital News Asia, and supported by the Ministry of Communications and Digital. And we thank Brickfields Asia College for hosting today's episode. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Carl, the Vice President of Digital Health and Digital Cities at Malaysia Digital Economic Corporation, to give the opening remarks. Welcome, Dr. Carl.
Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. Salam Perpaduan and Salam Malaysia Madani. First of all, I'd like to welcome all of you to this NDSP series event number 8. And the topic for today is data literacy in today's digital age. This event, as mentioned by Diana, is a collaborative effort between Malaysia Digital Economic Corporation, or MDEC, Malaysia Kini, and Digital News Asia, with the support of Ministry of Communication and Digital. And the aim is to promote national data sharing policy, which was launched by the government last year. The policy is the key to foster a data sharing environment that are not only conducive but transformative, and aims to unleash the true potential of data, improve quality and transparency of service delivery, stimulate innovation, and drive economic growth through data-driven solutions. So the series aims to educate the public about the benefits of data sharing, but also the challenges, while gathering opinions and suggestions to how to enhance the policy and its implementation. Data literacy is an important component or skill set to have, because in today's age, you derive information from data. And data is seen as one of the most valuable assets in the 21st century, right? So all companies and individuals need to understand data, because data drives innovation. It's also the key to understand not just the customer's behavior, but also the universe as well. In today's age, the environment is a key concern, climate changes, etc., and data is the key to understand all of this. And just as the oil was the currency in the 20th century, data is now the currency of the 21st century. And you can see that, in today's technology like generative AI, data is the key foundation that drives this innovation. And whoever holds the data, the company valuation will definitely go up, right? So you can see, like in Southeast Asia, Grab, because they hold so much data about the consumer, the valuation is very, very high. And the big tech companies like Facebook, Google, and so forth, right? Because they have the data, they're able to have better target marketing, giving a better experience to their clients, right? So data is available because, number one, as mentioned earlier on, it allows us to understand the world around us better, right? In terms of consumer behavior, climate changes, and so forth. The second thing, it's by having the data, it allows us a better decision making, right? So we know what's the options to take, and by using this data, you're able to predict what could happen in the future as well, right? So we are more informed when we make these decisions about our businesses, our lives, and society. Thirdly, data is the foundation of innovation, right? So as mentioned earlier on, the new technology like generative AI, machine learning are all developed by using data. And as data become more valuable, we also need to be aware of its challenges and opportunity, right? So one of the key challenges is, data being used in not an ethical manner, in a harmful manner, which could harm the society. Another challenges with data is also potential biasness as well, right? So if you take the data that are incomplete or you call it not very clean, so you can create a lot of biasness in the system. So as user of data, you need to be well aware of this as we move forward. We also, another area which is important is data privacy, right? And also data security, because while it's important to hold data as useful, but it's also important that you protect the data that's been entrusted to you to hold, right? So while we have these challenges, opportunity of this data it's vast, and it can be used to improve our lives in countless of ways. So, for example, in development of new medical devices, creating more efficient transportation system, and as well as designing more sustainable cities. And MDAC launched the Malaysia Digital as a national strategic, to encourage and to attract companies and talent and investment, to focus on digital adoption. And this initiative succeed MSC Malaysia that served to transform Malaysia into a knowledge-based economy since 1990s. So Malaysia Digital's aim is to attract digital investment, establish Malaysia as a digital hub of ASEAN, as well as transform national digital capabilities, growing local tech companies, driving digital adoption, and boost digital economy through introduction and execution of various catalytic initiatives called the Pemangkin. Since the launch of Malaysia Digital, we have identified 9 promoted sectors, which are digital finance, Islamic digital finance, digital trade, digital agriculture, digital tourism, digital content, digital services, digital health, and digital cities. These 9 focus areas are identified as presenting the high growth potential, opportunities, and the importance in driving Malaysia's next transformation in digital economy. To unlock the full potential of these promoted sectors and ensure success in driving Malaysia's digital economy, a conducive data ecosystem and also a data sharing environment is key to drive this sector forward. And data sharing will encourage greater innovation, commercialization to create data-driven solutions, as well as create a new source of growth in this promoted sector. We believe that data has the potential to make the world a better place. I mentioned to you, you can understand things better decision making, as well as greater innovation, and it's important to use it wisely. We need to develop policies, regulations that protect our data, but also ensuring that it's used for good. And national data sharing policy has been developed to do just that, to provide a guideline to everyone, and also to provide awareness and education so that businesses are aware of the value of data and can start taking steps to use this data for greater good. In conclusion, then the NDSP initiative is a critical part of our effort to position Malaysia as the leader in digital economy. And with your help and support, we can achieve our ambitious goal to create a brighter future for all Malaysians. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karl. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Tilai, CTO of PAC, to give his welcoming speech.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So you can see a lot of students, maybe you can move forward because when they take the video, it looks like very empty. So you can move forward and fill up the empty spaces, be good. So anyway, you heard from Carl just now. Carl's from MDEC. There are two Singhs here. There's Karamjit and Kiranjit Singh, and there's your own lecturer, Hazirah Bibi is here. So you'll hear from them later. But before I start, I just want to give a little bit of view because UNIMY is new. Just for information, UNIMY moved to this building in March this year. They used to be in Cyberjaya. So a little bit about, you can see all the logos. So quickly in the next slide, yeah. Okay, so you could see these are all the various colleges under the BAC group. So we have the BAC Asia College, which is mainly doing law. We have ICT doing creative arts, Veritas doing business and IT. We have Reliance doing hospitality. We have UNIMY doing computer science engineering and BAC College Singapore. So that's typically the group today. And what I want to cover today is a little bit about skills. I think, you heard about data, you heard Carl talking about data, importance of data. But I think one thing is important for all the kids here is that skills are very important. The skills are moving at a very fast rate today. So you look at skills, typically they're treated as skills. There's cognitive skills, physical and social. But I think the point here is to be clear is that if you look at skills today, see those days we thought we could, the horse-driven carriages, right? They thought it could be a lifetime profession. But today, suddenly something came, Grab came about, Uber came about and displaced the horse carriages into cars. And guess what? Now in the US, there are a lot of self-driving cars right now. So soon the Ubers and the Grabs will be displaced by self-driving cars. So you see the skills are moving very fast. This is happening as we talk, more and more cities in the US and even maybe in Malaysia in future, there'll be self-driving cars. So the point I'm trying to get to you is that skills are changing at a very fast rate. If you look at the data from the World Economic Forum today, the skills, the half-life of a skill is actually the time you study a skill until it becomes obsolete. So when I graduated long time ago, 30 years ago, that time I could be an engineer for my whole life. But today, the half-life of a skill is 5 years. In 2017, the half-life is only 5 years. So imagine you start a degree, you're doing computer engineering or doing computer science, 3 years, 5 years. By the time you finish, you're almost obsolete. By 2030, they say the half-life will be 2.5 years. Before you graduate, you're obsolete. So what does it mean? You've got to keep improving. So attending functions like this, hearing from the experts about data, about how do you protect data, about new policies are very important because if not, you'll be obsolete today. So this is an example of what's happening. This data is not mine. This is from the World Economic Forum data today. If you look further, so what does it take? Yeah. So what does it take? 5 ways where you can actually survive. So first thing is be proactive. Don't wait to become obsolete. So what I'm trying to say is you're in a learning institution, you're sitting in this building, we have another building next door. Keep learning. That's the first part of it. Second thing is being comfortable to being uncomfortable. So don't be in a comfort zone. Always keep looking at new things coming out. Be flexible. You must adapt to change. There are a lot of change happening. Imagine 30 years ago or 20 years ago, we didn't have this thing called a cell phone. Today we do banking, today we do Waze, today I can't get from here to maybe Carl's place, MDEC without my Waze or my Google map. If I go in my car, drive it, I'll get lost. So I have to click that. But 3 years ago, we could use physical maps. So that's changing. Network is a bunch of professionals. So this kind of events is where you network. Learn from people like Karamjit, Kiranjit, Hazirah Bibi. Learn from them here. Ask them lots of questions, please, after this. Ask them questions so you can learn new things from them. And finally, be a lifelong learner. I'm still learning. I got not have much hair left, not much hair as Karamjit or Kiranjit, less hair, but I'm still learning, So we have to keep learning. Learning is never ending, okay? Finally, before I finish, just a few more slides. It's not changing. Can you click the computer for me, please? Yeah, here. So what are the skills required in the digital economy? I'm sure Carl will agree with me. Carl, data science and data analytics. Carl is a guru in data science and data analytics. So any question data science, go and ask him. The guy who spoke here is now Dr. Carl. He's got good knowledge in data science. Ask him. That is very key because everything now revolves upon data. What Carl said, data is the new oil. No more that black thing from the ground, but data. Don't forget, critical thing is very important. Problem solving, communication, digital literacy, changing work patterns. Cybersecurity, very, very important because you guys use Facebook, you're exposing your data. Very important to protect your data. And finally, emotional intelligence. So just one slide to show what are the fast growing jobs coming about, since a lot of you are students, and what's the fast declining jobs. You can see number one up there, AI machine learning. I'm sure you heard of ChatGPT, you heard about Bard, you heard about Gemini. Those things are coming very fast. And you can see business intelligence analysts, that's also becoming very hot. Information security. So these are some on the left is some of the fast growing skills. But look at the clerical jobs like bank tellers, clerks, postal clerks. Last time I can't remember buying a stamp. I don't remember buying a stamp for a long, long time. I just send email or WhatsApp or, those days SMS, So it's those jobs are going away. So we just had a talk on Saturday about legal tech. So the lawyers were saying a lot of those low-level clerical work is slowly going away. It's being replaced by AI or machines or data analytics. So you got to become a specialist in your area. So these are examples of things which are actually growing and things which are declining today. So that's all I have today. So anyway, I'll pass on the mic to Karamjit to start his session. Thank you very much.
Okay, it is on. Okay, very much. Thank you. So I think I want to emphasize one thing that Tilai Raj said, right? Please, all of you ask questions, right? Because it's an opportunity with these two, maybe not experts, but they are subject matter, specialists, to ask them and probe them and challenge them, okay? And this is how we're going to have a dynamic interchange. This is not going to be a lean back session where you just lean back and listen to us. And one thing you want to know about the format of our, this series, right? Our national data sharing policy is that all the questions I'm asking them actually come from your peers. So we have picked questions that the audience, those who are watching us now on the live stream, they've asked already. And the two panelists have chosen the questions they thought would be interesting for them to share with you. And the questions then we're gonna have some live questions, I think, coming in from those who are watching also, right, Diana? And it'll be shared with me. And then you can, of course, being here, we prioritize those who are here because you have given us your most valuable asset. You've made the effort to come here, right, and to be part of this. So whether you put up your hand and you can ask a question, a mic will be given to you. We'll let you ask a question. Of course, those who are watching also. And with that, now we'll get started. Let me just invite not my relative Kiranjit, right, to come on the stage and join me. Names just happen to be similar. Yep. So, and then, of course, then I keep calling up professor. I say, no, I'm not a professor. Yeah. So, Dr. Hazirah, please come join the stage, on the stage. And you can check their profile on LinkedIn, right? So we're not going to waste time with that. We're going to just get started straight into the topic. And interesting that some people, there were a lot of questions, by the way. That's what I love about this series, right? So many people ask questions. And one of the questions which neither panelist chose was from somebody from a consulting company saying that the PDPA in Malaysia is toothless. Yeah, anyone's data is on sale for a few cents. How can Malaysia have its compliance at least on par with the GDPR, which is, of course, the benchmark set by Europe? So I think that they haven't chosen to answer the question. That's fine. But I can just share with you that there's this concern out there. But by the way, if you follow the PDPA in a way, it is now in the process of being updated. Actually, they've already made their submissions, and I think our members of parliament will be debating it in the next parliament session to update the policy also. So that's already in act now. And interesting enough, one of the other questions we had, which the two panelists did not choose to answer because there were so many questions, was from someone called Dave and saying that the property developers are sharing our data and with all the agents out there. So very interesting. I see somebody nodding. So I happen to know the CEO of a not a listed company, but of a condo developer. So I called him up and I say, hey, this is what people are saying. He said, absolutely not. He said that there are two reasons why we don't do that. One, we will get into bucket loads of trouble. Okay, he actually used the word SHIT. I won't repeat it here. We'll get into loads of trouble. So it's not worth it. And the other one is for selfish reasons. If I'm sharing my customer data with an agent, what is my guarantee that he or she will not share it or sell it to somebody else? So don't believe this. I mean, there are a lot of fallacies there about data being shared. He said it's not true that at least reputable property developers will not share their customer data. So here's the interesting point. So I said then, why do people think that the data of developers, right, is out there? He said, yes, we hear unsubstantiated rumors that our data is sold by other parties who have access to the data. You know, when a property developer gets a sale, they also share the data of the buyer with your power company, your phone company, and your water company. Very interesting, huh? He said that there's talk that these are the people, somebody creates an Excel spreadsheet and sells that data out there. So, but definitely radar does not sanction it. So property developers, for that reason, do not share your data. So that's not true. Anyway, with that now, let's get started with our conversation. And again, I'm using that as an example. If there's another question you have about, oh, these people are selling data, right? Bring it up and maybe the panelists can answer that also and put that, maybe it's a false pretense there. Sometimes you repeat something so often it becomes fact, right? But in this case, this is one example where it's not true. So now we'll start off with a question, Dr. Hazirah first. What would be the biggest gap we are facing, right, in data literacy? And this was asked by Arif, who's with a government agency. You can get the note, each of them. What is the biggest gap we are facing, right, in terms of data literacy?
Okay. The biggest gap of using data literacy is because of awareness. Because we are not sure what data that we have. What is data literacy? Actually, data literacy is understanding and use the data that we have. So before, so awareness is needed. Yeah. So in order to get the awareness is by training what how to protect your data before you send it to. Before you use it, you have to train. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, it's up to you. As long or as short as you want to answer that, that's fine. So, Prof, again, Dr. Hazirah is very nervous. It's the first time she's sitting in front of a panel, so let's just be supportive of her. Okay, Kiran, so the question I want to ask you is, will government share their data to integrate the silos they're in, right? So that it can cut across different agencies?
Hello. Okay, good. So I will answer that. Give me 1 minute, but let me clarify.
Kiran, can you hold the mic closer?
Sorry. So data literacy, in my opinion, is what my professor said just now, is not only making sense of the data which you have, but more importantly in today's day and age is when you're presented a set of data, right? You are able to analyze it, critique it, and make your own opinions and conclusion on the data. So it's not only using your data which you have to make or to take actionable insights, but more importantly in today's day and age, when you're presented data, you are able to assess the validity, the trust, and how you're going to act on the data. For example, in 2001, have you guys heard of the term called summer of shark? No? Okay. In 2001 in US, it was called the summer of shark. Apparently, there were so many shark attacks on that particular summer, they call it summer of shark. But so people say, why are the sharks attacking? And, you know what I mean? But actually, when you look into the data, they were using data from articles published in the media, rather than actual statistics data from the Coast Guard and so on. So they call it summer of shark. And then everybody talking about the sharks going to come, don't go swimming anymore. Then 9/11 happened. Then the summer of shark just died off. So when you presented a data point, it is more important these days to able to analyze, critique, and also make your form your own opinion. Another example is if you read reports, sometimes they say, well, eating meat and so on is as bad as smoking cigarettes, can give you cancer and so on. Actually, it's not true, but depending on what kind of data you use and so on. That is saying that if you eat meat 3 times a day or 6 times a day for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then so on, and have an unhealthy diet and so on. Now, about the government sharing data, it is very difficult. By the way, government or the public sector collects most number of data than anybody else.
Really?
Right? Yes. They know when you are born, and they know when you will be when you're dying also, right? So your whole life cycle, right? And in a country where you have digital services in everything you do, right? Like Estonia and so on, you need to share a lot of data, because to enhance customer experience from the government, public services and so on, you need to share a lot of data. So, but what's happening these days is a lot of systems by the government and so on is systems which was designed to collect data on a silo basis, right? It could be because of the system's legacy issues, or also due to rules and regulations. For example, if you do at Dawson, for example, they are not allowed to share data on a granular basis.
Okay, sorry, just once again. Dawson, how many of you know what Dawson is? Okay, it's very few. It's a Department of Statistics, Malaysia. Yeah. So, you know, sometimes we tend to throw out, because they live, breathe, and breathe, and sleep this, right? So, if I catch it, I will stop them and ask them to explain what it means. Yeah, very important data agency in Malaysia, the most important.
Yeah. Okay. So sometimes it has to do with how it was set up years ago, and also the rules and regulations which they have governing their act. You know what I mean? So in future, to improve public services / customer experience, you will need to share a lot more data, and the public sector services will need to integrate all the data to enhance the quality of service which they can provide to all of us.
Okay, so interesting. So I think in terms of government sharing data, obviously some of you may already know that our income tax, the taxman is very good, right? And our taxman has partnered with immigration to already share data. And I'm wondering if that's the first time two government agencies have shared data in that manner. And sometimes you can be a victim of that, because I think about 2016 or 17, I was on my way to Singapore for my colleague's wedding. Can you imagine, it's his wedding? I'm Singapore, you can fly in on the same day, right? At Subang Airport, because I was going to take, not KLIA, I wanted to fly out of Subang. I was stopped from flying, and they say you're on the blacklist by income tax department. I say, what the heck? How? You haven't paid taxes. And I was so pissed, man. Can you imagine, you're supposed to go for a wedding, it's the weekend, and the day before, no, it was a Sunday. So 2 days before, I was at the income tax department, and I was paying I did not pay the full personal income tax I owed. I paid a portion. And after paying that, I was so pissed because they didn't tell me, sir, this is not enough. You are on a no-fly list, or you're on a blacklist, right? I had to find out on a Sunday. And I put it on my social media. I was so pissed, right? I told a lot of people then commented, they also kena. Nobody wants to go on social media to say they got blacklisted, couldn't fly because they didn't pay their personal income tax, right? But my skin is quite thick, I was quite pissed because I was there on Friday making a partial payment, and they didn't have the courtesy to tell you. So, but that frustrated customer service point aside, at least I can tell you, definitely our income tax and immigration are aligned already. So if you have not paid your personal income tax, you're planning to fly overseas, be careful, right? Don't get caught, because you're gonna end up wasting your flight ticket, right? That's the worst part. So just be aware of that. And by the way, just another example, a few days ago, I had to help my sister renew her passport. How many of you have recently had to renew your passport? Anyone? Okay, 1, 2, right? So a handful, it's an incredibly seamless experience when the system works, right? You got to go online, make your payment, and they'll give you a date where your appointment is to come and collect your passport. So I was waiting, and I got the email said that your passport is ready for collection. It didn't give me a time or day. Ready means I guess you can go anytime. And we went there and lined up, and literally within 20 minutes, there my sister had come out with the most valuable document of any country, right? They can issue your personal ID and your passport. And you know, when the data communicates seamlessly, right? This is how you benefit by allowing your data to be shared, in this case with the government. Of course, some of you may say, hey, Karamjit, government, we got no choice. We have to share with them. So, but this is just a micro example. So, okay, now let me go on to Hazirah, right, with the next question. And this is interesting, from a gentleman from a listed insurance company, Arvind Raj. And he's asking, what are the top 3 risks or concerns on data sharing in Malaysia? And how do you see legislation addressing those risks?
Okay. The concern of data sharing
a bit closer on the mic.
Okay. 3 concerns of data sharing in Malaysia. As you know that we are using the big data and the cloud. We share the data. Like what Mr. Karamjit said just now, from the immigration can contact to the, what's another one? Income tax, yeah. So we are sharing our data and we are sharing it in the cloud. So there are concerns. we share our data. And the same technique is used by the scammers. The scammers like to use that technique, yeah, that you didn't pay your tax, and then you will be declared bankrupt tomorrow. So that kind of thing. So how to prevent that from happening? So the data privacy, actually three things. CIA,
Sorry, did you say CIA?
CIA is confidentiality, availability, and integrity.
I thought the US agency. I got scared
CIA. There. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability of security. So the three things that I have found out is the data privacy and security. So the data must be secured. Even though we are sharing it in the internet, so there are several ways to make it secure. Maybe we categorize the data. Don't release all your data in the internet. And before you release your data, you have to read the rules and regulation. What are stated? Then only you share. Okay. And then, so that is the concern, the data privacy, concern about access to sensitive information. So that is one concern. And then the second concern is lack of trust. So how do you trust using releasing your data? So what are the factors that what makes you trust? So, and then the third one is the data quality. So the quality and the accuracy of shared data lead to flawed analysis. Yeah, some of the data are not higher quality. So that are the three concerns that I can find.
Okay, all right, that's fine. We'll move on to, okay, there's still some people coming in, that's good. Kiran, I'll move on to the question for you now, right? And you've taken something very basic but very interesting, because the topic is about data literacy, right? So someone has asked, what are some examples of data literacy? So do you want to take this 101 question?
Okay, sure. Let's talk about something about economics, for example, right now. Okay, so interest rates, right? If you guys have heard interest rates, you will take a loan, you always worry about whether Bank Negara is going to raise the interest rates or lower down interest rates. So there are many factors which they use to judge the interest rates. Some of the factors is inflation, for example, unemployment, and also consumer sentiment index, for example. There are many other factors, global issues and so on. But if we just look into inflation right now, right? If you see, again, Department of Statistics and Ministry of Economy, which they publish inflation numbers, our inflation numbers are 3 or 4% more or less, you know, and it's kind of going down. Okay. But you don't feel that 3-4% when you go to buy something, you feel it's getting more expensive, 10-20% inflation rate and so on. So another question many people ask me is, why they think the prices are only going 3-4%, but I'm feeling it, I'm spending 10-20% more for even single items and so on. That is because how they collect the inflation numbers, for example, is a basket of goods. And if you look at food basket categories of food, most of the food items under the CPI are control items, like rice, flour, oil, and most of the things are control items, chicken and so on, right? So that is why the inflation rate number is 3-4%. But if you look the whole basket of goods, for example, other things, for example, your Starbucks coffee and so on, it changes the dynamics. So again, so the understanding data, how people use data, is very important for us to understand our well-being, how things work and so on. So usage of data is very important. Understanding how data is presented is also very important. I'm giving you an example how real-world data is used to make judgments about certain things in our life.
Okay. Anything else that on a more basic level that the audience can relate it? I know we were talking just now how Gen Z, seems to not value their data, right? They just give it away. And there was a young man seated earlier who was also saying the same thing. So, is that really true that Gen Z, have very little concerns around their data being out there?
So it depends on the two things, right? Number one, just take me. I'm not Gen Z, but nevertheless, just me, right? I don't mind sharing data, my personal data, if there's two things. Number one, trust. The person who's going to use my data is trustworthy and so on. And number two, how they're going to use the data for. So if they're going to improve a certain product or service which they gave to me, for example, I share a lot of data with a certain chain of hotels, which I go around on a regular basis. They know before I enter the room, they know what kind of bed I want, what kind of pillows I want. I like to drink a lot of coffee. So they really have that data or that information in their system, so that the room which is given to me has a certain customized to my preference to some extent. You know what I mean? So for that case, I don't mind sharing data. So even Gen Z or Gen X or whatever, you need to make sure that the person who's getting your data is trustworthy, and there is a trade-off between what they can use the data for. If they're going to use it to sell to a third party for scamming, then obviously it's going to happen. So it cuts across Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y, whatever. But obviously the older generation and so on are much more skeptical of sharing data. The US citizens are much more skeptical of sharing data because they feel Big Brother is coming in. Nations are less.
Okay, fine. I know somebody who's with one of the founders of one of our leading fintech companies, iPay88. And he said the difference between baby boomers, because he's a baby boomer, and Gen Z is that the baby boomers, when you ask them to share, ask to get their data, they will say how safe it is. And we said with the Gen Z, if you ask them to share data, they said how fast it is, because you guys want speed. So you're willing to share your data if you get speed, in return. And I guess that speed translates to convenience, lah. So that's kind of interesting. So hopefully we'll get some questions, or some of you can challenge that assumption if you think it's not true, right? Okay, we'll go on to a question now for Dr. Hazirah. And this is an area around where she's very familiar, cybersecurity. So this is a question from Celine, who's with a consultancy. So I noticed while there are about close to 200 people who RSVP'd, quite a number of questions came from people who are working with consultancies. So obviously they are getting a lot of questions, from their clients, right? And so they want to, get your insight also in this now. So the question is, how does cybersecurity come into play in protecting the data that is collected?
Okay, cybersecurity is related to this data. This use of protecting that data is by several methods. We have data encryption. So before, actually the system must allow data to be encrypted. So when it's encrypted, then we feel secure to transfer our data. And then access control. We must implement certain access control before we can transfer the data. Network security, there must be a firewall, and then the IDS, and then the software must be encrypted all the way. And incident response. Anything happen, let's say data is hacked. What happened? So there must be a certain step. So that is incident response handling. And then you also have to do audit. So that are the preventive measure. How to make sure that we can benefit from using the data.
Okay. I think I think there will be a link to our national data sharing policy. It is in Bahasa Malaysia, yeah, but you can actually read the whole document. And obviously, for you to have a conversation around sharing of data, it all starts with the hygiene factor, right? Security. So you have to trust that the data there is secure. Because nobody's going to buy a car if the car is not safe, right? All cars that we buy go through rigorous safety checks before it's allowed to be put on the market. Same with your data sharing. There is an unwritten rule that the data that is shared already is very, very secure, and it's very robust, right? Not anyone can get it, which is why you see so many people attempting to hack The reason why people want to hack is because there's encryption, there's security there, so bad actors want to try to force their way into the system. So you have to have the security first, and there are myriad factors and policies and procedures out there. Kiran, now let me move on to the next question for you, which is around, interesting. So this is a big question, right? It's a very short question, but it's a big question, which is, how can we improve the public's data literacy, I guess, prowess, right, or sophistication? How can all of them, right, improve your own, data security, data literacy? I was going to say illiteracy. Okay, I censored myself. Literacy.
So I think you need to make data interesting, and also disarming in many ways that is not very complicated. Okay, I was never a good student, but I like to look at data and so on and make sense of it. Now, most of you are students, and I remember at that age, I like to have much more fun facts rather than policy matters. Do you guys know that increasingly more serial murders are solved with the help of data scientists than actual police investigation? Right, so that's important. So data analysis, data scientists, whatever, are used in many cases, not only in terms of in the lab or whatever, but also in real world action and so on. Now, for public, so people like MDAC and so on have a big role to play, but you need to make sure at least you have a bit of education that a lot of data today is presented not to share information, but to sway a certain point of view. A lot of data or statistics is used these days when you read in the papers or whatever, is to present it in such a way to advocate a certain position or to form a certain opinion in your mind. So people like me and you and so on, we need to understand more and more how the data is presented, why is it presented that way, what are the gaps, and so on. So I think that is something which we can all do better.
Okay, good, thanks. Got a question from online, but I'll wait till later then. So also, by the way, we've got our national digital ID now, right, before I move on to the next question, and I think we are quite interesting. Tilai Raj actually in his previous life was very involved in the planning, the framework, right, the security, the protocols around our digital ID. So, and if Tilai, you feel you want to jump in with some thoughts, right, you can grab a mic from Diana and share your thoughts. But now that's out in the public, domain now. It's a conversation among all of us, and I'm wondering how many of you have already registered, to get your digital ID from the government of Malaysia. Anyone yet? Yeah. No, okay. How many of you are planning to sign up and get your digital ID? One person? Okay, man, better let the government know. The digital ID is in trouble, man. Nobody's interested. Only 1% is planning, so that's kind of interesting. So I tell you what, maybe some of you have not decided or some of you don't know, but for some of you who are hesitant about that, please at some point, I would love for you to ask for a mic and share your thoughts why you are reluctant to apply for a digital ID. Because the benefits are manifold, right? And Tila is nodding his head there. And it'll be interesting to hear why the vast majority, almost all, right, except for one person who was trying to get a friend to, hey, put up your hand also, I don't want to be the only one, right? So it'll be really interesting to find out why, because I'm definitely going to get it. I kind of just forgot over the weekend. I wanted to go online and just get apply for that, because I think it's valuable. So it'd be great to hear your thoughts, because this is quite scary, that nobody's even thinking of doing that. So I don't understand why. So please come back and get a mic after I ask this question to Dr. Hazirah. Okay, Dr. Hazirah, this next question is on what are best practices to ensure data security while sharing data to business partners in today's business world. Interesting. And this was asked by Chin Hao, who's an IT manager with a company which is an export manufacturer. So interesting question from him.
Okay, actually, if you want to share data with your business partners, you must have signed an agreement.
Agreement, okay.
Yeah, because that business should not use your data as they wish. And then, of course, another thing is, I already said just now, classify your data so that the most important data you keep. Don't release all, because anything can happen. Maybe your business partner doesn't release the info, but they are being hacked. So what will happen? Okay, there is another is risk management. So risk management must be done every year. There must be a agreement that they will do some sort of risk management. They will do audit to their security system. So because hackers are there every day, and they will not stop hacking and to see the vulnerabilities of the company.
That's interesting that they will not stop. I think a few years ago I was on a panel organized by one of the big four consultancies, and a Malaysian who's a global cybersecurity expert said that the scary thing is that one individual and crazily motivated hacker can eventually find his or her way, not all hackers are male, right? His or her way into a system if they are determined enough, and I see one or two people nodding, right? And that's the crazy, reality of this world, right? Where all data is now in digital form and it's stored somewhere, right? Yeah. And not like in a vault somewhere where you physically have to go there. If you've got a very powerful machine, you can eventually find a way, and that just blew my mind. And that is the cold and hard reality of the world, right? Which is why now so many companies, if you are involved in data security, they talked about zero trust environment, right? You assume that you trust no one when you're trying to build your systems and protect it. So in reaction to this, so that's really scary, man. So okay, now we've got one question which has come from the audience watching online. And we'll need to get questions from you, right? Because otherwise this discussion will end early, right? So, and this is a question for either one of you to answer. Oh, sorry, it's not here. Oh, it's on my phone now. Okay, let me just get that. And let me see if somebody has put their name to it. No, the question is anonymous. Okay, that's fine. What strategies can effectively balance, right, the ethical considerations and potential value increase when sharing data across sectors? So that's kind of a tough question there, but very relevant. Thank you, whoever asked this. So maybe Kiran, I'll ask you to take this because you do so much database research.
Okay. So
very good question, by the way.
So when we talk about ethical data sharing, is very a big word, right? Ethical. But let's say about data sharing, right? In whatever form, data sharing will be something which will be more important, whether it's in public sector or businesses and so on, right? Data sharing will happen, right? And most companies, 99% of companies and so on, they share the data not to scam you or to do harm to you. Most of them, they share the data to provide better services, to understand you better, and also to be more efficient. They're using it in the best interest of the business and also for your customer. So that is the ethical point of view, right? People don't share data, but what gets publicized is a scam and so on, right? So data sharing is important. I will encourage data sharing, but with certain safeguards, right? With certain safeguards, that is both on the technical front and also legislative front. I think data sharing should be encouraged, and it will only make our lives better and richer.
Okay, that may be it, but I'm also quite cynical. I mean, just this afternoon before coming over, I was AXA Insurance came up with a global climate risk report. Looked really interesting, and the infographic was fantastic, and I wanted to download the report. And then when you go to their website, it says that the first thing it says that there are 11 cookies/trackers, from us and our partners that we will use to deliver a better service to you, Karamjit Singh. Of course, they don't know my name, right? I'm like, really, I just want to download the report. So you can agree or you can disagree, and I reject. So luckily, I rejected, but they still allowed me to access the report. And I'm thinking, an insurance company, right? Why you want to share my browsing experience on their website, right? With 11 different partners, it just blows your mind, right? How many people out there are hungry for your data? And I said no, and lucky they didn't force you, and I was still able to access the report. But it's scary, but you also feel helpless, right? That this is the reality of us living in a digital world. You're just giving out your data and you hope that it doesn't come back and bite you in a negative way. I don't know. But okay, we've got one interesting question from somebody listening in from related to the question I was asked. I'm hoping to get from one of you all. Marcia Chan is asked, right? And maybe Tila, I think I'll need you to jump in to grab a mic from Diana and also share your perspective. What is so important and crucial about digital ID? Scammers can also use digital ID as scams. So interesting that she's also concerned about that. So, of course, I'll let also Dr. Hazirah and Kiran answer that. But maybe Tila, you want to kick off by trying to answer her question. And a great question, Marcia. Thank you so much.
So the digital ID framework, it's no different from sending the QR code in that banner out there. Actually, the data doesn't sit in the digital ID. It sits in the back end, in the national registry. Because when we scan, you actually scan a QR code, it goes back to the national registry, looking at your ID and your fingerprint from the data from the national registry, which is your My Card. So actually the important part is to protect that part of it. The digital ID is just a gateway for you to get in. So instead of you going to a bank, putting your My Card, putting your fingerprint, now it becomes digital ID, you scan it, it goes back and it verifies you. Today, the bank, when they do your verification, it's offline. That means you put your ID against the My Card, which you're physically there. The only difference now, digital ID, it will go back to the back end, which is in JPN, the Jabatan Pendaftaran Negara, or National Registry, look at your data and pull it in. So it's a big advantage because in future, we don't need to actually, you have a digital My Card, that's a big advantage of it. And you can just scan a QR code to approve documents, whatever. But the key part of the data is actually sitting in the national registry. So we need to protect that part of it. So we create like what you call we create like an air gap. They call it an air gap.
Sorry, what again? Air gap, AIR.
Yeah, air gap. We create an
Even
air
I'm
gap.
not familiar with that term.
So we create an air gap to protect the data from there. So you send the data, it gets written to a certain space, and then it goes and talks to the national registry. So similarly, the government is doing something to do subsidy going forward. The subsidy, they're also doing a system called PADU. So in future, looking at your different parameters like your salary, your income tax, your KWSP, and various parameters, they decide which group you belong to, T20, B40, whatever, and they give you a subsidy. So similar technology is being used to look at data so that we know whether Karamjit is entitled to 2 ringgit and 5 cents or pay 4 ringgit, or whether you're only entitled to pay 4 ringgit, whatever, depending on the subsidy. So we create this thing. Obviously, there's always a chance of hack because just like last week, Picasso got hacked. I don't know what data has been lost. I know they got hacked, it's in the news. But the issue is obviously we need to look at that. And there'll always be hackers. So we just got to like what Karamjit's good point, zero trust. Don't just build a border around you. You just imagine everybody here are hackers. So you got to protect that. So I'll pass it back to the panel. I'm sorry, stealing your time.
Maybe Dr. Hazirah, you want to take this?
It is zero trust. But again, if we zero trust, we cannot use any technology. Am I correct? Just like several software in the internet. If you want to download, you have to with no money. But if you want some trust, then you put some money. But with no money, you just have to get all those cookies. And tomorrow or later, you will get messages, different pictures, the one that you don't want to see. So that is today environment. You can have zero trust and not using the technology, or you can just close one eye and have the consequences. So I think we have to move forward, even though it's not secured, but there are several measures that they take. For example, like the bank now, it's not just you can access online, but they will send the PIN code through your phone, the phone that you registered, and then you send to email. So that is the preventive measure to detect it is really you that are accessing the system. So is it zero trust? We have some trust when they have that method. And if we are not using it, we have to go to the bank and queue. And takes a lot of time.
Okay. So interesting. Kiran, before you take this, right, let me just ask the audience, right, how many of you I'm going to ask so that you have to put up your hand to answer this question. How many of you do not trust the government with securing your data around, oh my God, I haven't even finished the question. People are putting up their hands already, man. Okay, let me finish the question first, folks, okay? How many of you do not trust the government to keep your data secure around our digital ID program? Okay. Okay, like, wow, okay, man. It's like
You trust BAC, right? Keeping your data.
no. So, okay, literally, and a lot of it are the young kids, right? It's amazing, huh? So how do you, and of course now the Perkeso hack does not help, right? Because it's a government agency. So the timing, when I looked at that, I said, oh, shoot, man, the timing is so unfortunate, right? And by the way, lots of government agencies around the world get hacked all the time, okay? It's not just a Malaysian situation. So, but seeing this reality, right, and you assume at least maybe half of those who didn't bother putting up their hands also probably agree with the rest, right? Take this, how do you answer this question?
Okay, so I think it comes back to data literacy, right? So, as Doctor mentioned, some amount of trust is necessary, otherwise nothing moves, right? But let's take a bit more in a different context, financial literacy. So many years ago, the government was pushing, all governments in Southeast Asia, in fact, many of the third world countries were fighting for financial inclusion. So financial inclusion, so digital banks, your GrabPay, or whatever example, is part of your digital financial inclusion, right? So now financial inclusion has gone above and beyond the then initial targets, right? Because each time you use your digital wallet is part of the financial inclusion. But what is happening now is financial inclusion, they got A+, but financial literacy is still a work in progress. That is why a lot of people are falling prey to scams. You know what I mean? So your financial inclusion and financial literacy are not going hand in hand. So your financial literacy is actually still at the infancy stage. Likewise, for the digital inclusion, digital ID is a financial digital inclusion to some extent, but at the same time, you need to have digital literacy, hence the topic of today. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just insane. Earlier we were saying that Gen Z just are more than happy to share their data out, and yet there's so little trust around the government, at least specifically because the question is around the national digital ID. There's such a contrast there. So you can share, I guess, with the big players like the likes of Spotify or whatever, right? The global players, you think they're global, right? You can trust them with your data. But here at the national level, very little trust. Interesting. It's going to be a big challenge. And by the way, I think when Tilai Raj mentioned PADU, because we are moving towards targeted subsidies, and this is where data is very important, especially for all of us who are paying income tax, personal income tax, right? You want to make sure that you're more than happy you want to make sure that your taxes are being used for the good of the country, right? So you obviously want it to be targeted. So that's why, the digital ID also is working together with our targeted subsidies to make sure that every cent that's eventually given out goes to the right people, right families. And that can change. Somebody who's getting, like Tila said, maybe 981 ringgit, a month now, maybe 8 months or 1 year down the road could be end up getting it 2,000. Why? Because suddenly they realize that the children are now in a college, right? And they're in a private college and they haven't applied for the PTPN, or the PTPN, they only got like 50% of the college fees. So it's incredibly valuable. And then if you are in that space, you don't have to beg and go to an agency and say, hey, look, this is what happened, and all that. Because the data will be there. So in a lot of ways, digital helps you. Your life is transparent, right? In terms of your money flow and your responsibilities. It can help, I think, in a big way, especially for B40 and below. Tila, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, you can say all these things about data literacy, data security, but find is like My Sejahtera.
By the way, Tila, we are officially incorporating you as the third panelist for today.
So
unofficial.
like My Sejahtera, you have no choice, right? I mean, we could say it's not privacy. So PADU and My Digital ID become the next My Sejahtera. So eventually, you cannot satisfy everybody. There'll always be a gap. Whether you talk to everybody, you talk 10 people, the 5 will say great, 5 will say it's hopeless. But eventually you become a Maisajata. Without it, you couldn't enter a shopping center. You couldn't enter your office. So eventually, I think it will happen. And things will improve over time. There's no perfect system. I think over time, we'll keep improving on it. Obviously, we'll do our best to keep it as secure as possible, but I'm sure there'll be improvements happening. But eventually, if we have to move, we can't be left behind. Just like SingPass. SingPass in Singapore is being used.
SingPass, it's a Singapore's national digital ID.
Correct. So SingPass first started, they had some issues and then they fixed it. So I think it's always going to happen. It's just a matter of time. But I think it will start somewhere. And we have to keep improving on it. So don't expect 100% perfect system. There'll be some issues for sure, but we have to start somewhere. If not, we'll be left behind. And you just mentioned, Kiranjit mentioned Estonia. There will be no more Estonia, will be maybe Gaza or maybe Afghanistan, something. We'll be in big trouble, we'll be far behind. So we just have to keep moving.
Keep moving forward.
Can I ask one question to the audience? If you don't trust the government, is there any other entity you trust more than the government to share data with? Anybody can answer.
To share your data, is it? Or?
Yeah, I mean, if they don't trust the government to be the custodian of data, is there any other entity which you have more faith in? Google, who you were saying?
Discrimination, racism, and all that is still an issue which has not been resolved.
Hold on. Oh, okay, you're done with you. Okay.
Yeah, that's all. So I just wanted to ask, why is the assurance that our data wouldn't be used?
So basically, the governance issue, holistically within a...
Exactly, right? Holistic. Other issues,
yes.
Then it's like you say you shouldn't be tainted by everything, but it casts a pall over everything.
Which is true, because based on our studies, we have worked on many policy methods and so on, raising income tax. You say you raise income tax, but you get better service, right? You get better service, that means your healthcare is better, your schools are better, your roads are better. Unfortunately, Malaysians don't trust that if they pay more to the public coffers, they will be getting the right ROI for their higher income tax. So again, it comes to trust and the governance issue, which I think the government should and must, and I'm sure they're doing it to mitigate some of these challenges they face.
Okay. Interesting. So I think there was a question or comment from Bala online, right? It said that students share data on a daily basis on multiple e-commerce platforms. But why are still so many hesitant to share data for government initiatives? Interesting. So I guess this was, I think he asked this question before we spoke about the digital ID. So irony there, right? And almost opposite contradiction. Interesting.
No, actually, it's true. Actually, when I was living in Los Angeles years ago, it was a simple thing. I was like, it caught me by surprise. They have toll roads and surface roads. That means you don't have to pay toll, but you just get stuck in another half an hour jam, whatever. And they have this digital, like kind of touch and go in America, right? So I used to take the toll road, and my friend, who was American, he said, "You use toll road? I'm not going to use toll road." I said, "Why? Is it expensive?" "No. The government will know when I enter the highway, when I leave the highway. They will track my movements and so on." I said, "So what? If they track, are you that important?" He said, "No, you never know how they're going to use it. They're going to sell to Mexico, and they're going to kidnap me from the drug cartel, all that." You know what I mean? So he went to the extreme case. You know what I mean? So it is sometimes the government can do whatever they want to do, but you still need to have some kind of naysayers or who are influenced by QAnon or conspiracy theory and so on, which it will be difficult to move. So it will be a mandatory thing, then sooner or later they have to be on the bandwagon.
Okay, interesting. Look, I've got a question online from Hasnain Zafar, and this is for the two of you, right? How can governments and the private sector help in changing mindsets when it comes to digital ecosystems? No, because these are complex systems, when you implement them, and whereas some are still using old methods also. So what are your thoughts on how they can help to change mindsets?
I think their mindset already changed.
Oh, you think it's already changed?
Yeah,
Okay.
because as you know, in our phone right now, Shopee, it says, buy today, and then I mean, you have to buy online, pay online, then you will get cheaper price. Definitely, you will release your info there, and it's only Shopee, it's not the government. So I think even though you didn't realize it, you already trust using the internet, release your information in internet.
Okay, fine.
I like to pick up on what Doctor said. You don't realize you already share the data. For example, even within even within Ipsos, we have a data science center with professors, scientists, whatever. Even if you don't answer the question, they know already what you're thinking about. Even if you don't answer the question, they know. For example, assuming they ask you to choose 1, 2, 3. If you answer within 1 second, or a certain second, right? Compared to if you take 5 seconds to answer the same question, they know the 5-second or 10-second one has a bit of hesitation. You're not sure. You're not sure of your answer. But if you answer quickly, right, then they know the answer is much more with conviction. Now, even if you do physically, if someone gives you a tablet to answer the question, pick A or B, right? If you so this is A, B, so you need to go this or this, right? So if you go answer A, just direct line, that means your answer is much more certain. But if you go like that, you know what I mean? That means your answer is not really sure. So sometimes, even if you don't answer, your actions in not answering is also a data point which many people capture. So if Karamjit doesn't want to accept all the cookies and so on, they know the data that he's not someone who is much more open to sharing data. So that is already a data point.
Okay, interesting. That's fine. Look, I was early. So there's another thing that is happening right now, and I want to get your thoughts on it, right? So there's the e-Madani, incentive or voucher that is going around. How many of you have already, received that or accept, applied for that, or know of people who have applied for that? Actually, no, forget about the second part. How many of you have actually applied for the e-Madani and received it? Okay, 1, 2.